Welcome to Escape Artistry, a short game masterclass with Luke Donald, former #1 in the world for 56 weeks. Again, I'm really excited to be jumping in the bunker with you. I know that when it comes to the short game, you're a magician, but in the bunker, you were completely on a different level. I know that you led the tour from 2009 to 2017 in every short game stat, and around the green, you were particularly just other level genius. And so I'm really excited to be able to jump into, for you, what has not only been techniques that you see will help most amateurs, but what do you do with the way you think and the artistry you present around the green in terms of what separated you from everyone else on the PGA Tour. So again, thank you so much for being here. Really excited to be able to dive into this with you. So I'd love to learn a little bit more when it comes to your bunker basics before we get into really the magic that you possess around the bunker.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. This is certainly a place I feel very comfortable in the sand. And while a lot of amateurs would probably feel a lot of dread, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety when they get in bunkers, I feel pretty comfortable. And a lot of tour pros feel the same way. They feel pretty good. And it's about understanding how to create the best kind of fundamentals, the best setup, and understanding how the wedge works, how this lob wedge works. This is my 60, which I play pretty much most of my bunker shots. I'll go to the 54, maybe a pitching wedge for longer shots. But the lob wedge is really designed with a big kind of bounce, a big soft flat area. And in bunkers, you really need to use this back edge as much as possible. So, this front edge digs a lot. It gets in the ground. It's very sharp. And this back edge skims, it goes nicely through the sand. So in bunker play, you really want to create thin, shallow divots that are as much in front of the ball as they are behind. A lot of the amateurs, again, I see the same kind of bad technique, bad setup over and over again, where they get the ball positioned a little bit further back. They tend to lean the shaft forward. They expose that front edge.
Yeah.
And what happens when you get into the sand with that, you can see how it creates big, thick divots.
Yeah.
And that makes it very inconsistent to control how the ball's going to come out, how it's going to spin.
For
so
sure.
You really want to expose that back edge, and you want to create thin, shallow divots, that are going forward and a little bit to the left. And there's a very big difference between that's what a common amateur mistake and divot would look like, as opposed to a pro that's using the club effectively.
So could you walk me through a little bit of the bunker basics, if you will, the grip, the setup, ways in which you engage bounce, a little bit better in setup, and maybe we can dive into some of the movement patterns in a second that you might harness in terms of what the hands do on the way down and create more speed and even more bounce exposure on the way down.
Yeah, Seve, of course, one of my idols growing up, was the master at this. And, I've seen quite a lot of videos that he's done over the years, but you really want to expose the bounce as much as possible, this back edge. So the best way to do that with technique and setup is, one, to get the ball positioned quite far forward.
Yeah.
And that's going to actually lean the shaft the opposite way. It's going to lean it a little bit further back. You want the club face nice and open. Again, that's exposing. This is shut, it's going to expose the front edge. This is open, it's going to expose that back edge. So you want to get the club face nice and open. Then take your grip, a little bit weaker again. Sure. We like weaker because that maintains loft on the face as much as possible. And from there, again, you don't want the club too far inside. It's a little bit more of an out, down, and left kind of strike because the ball's forward.
So if somebody were to walk in with the same grip they'd apply with their full swing, you probably end up seeing a lot more steep divots that dig quite a bit like this, as opposed to the shallow ones that we're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, iron play, they're going to be hitting down on it a little bit too much with that leading edge.
Yeah.
Which is going to create a nice strike on irons and a powerful flight, but that's not what you want in bunker play.
For sure. So just kind of giving us the basic bunker techniques. So we're going to move the ball position more forward to create a little bit of reverse shaft lean to expose more loft and more bounce. We're going to weaken the grip a little bit. And very similar in terms of the technique you used in your pitching action, which is a little bit more, leveraging the arms on the way back, a little bit more outside.
More outside, even more loft as possible. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of a drill where I'll grab a little bit of sand on my face, set up to the ball with the sand. And if you take this away too short, it's going to fall off the club face straight away. So if you're doing this properly and maintaining that nice loft, you're going to throw the sand kind of over your shoulder.
So how much do you feel like, if any, are you adding any more loft on the way back?
I want to feel in bunkers it's a little bit more around me.
Yeah.
With opening loft.
Yeah.
A little bit more of an around feel.
And an earlier setting of the right elbow that stays a little bit softer on the way back?
Yeah, again, I think that's the best way to open it is
Yeah.
to fold this right elbow.
For sure. So let's have you hit a couple, and then we're going to dive into more of the specialty shots in terms of what have separated you from maybe the rest of the field in terms of different sand types, soft sand versus firm sand, some plug lies, what you do when you have issues with the lip, different scenarios from there, and as well as some distance control stuff.
Yeah, and again, like I said earlier, I want my divot as much in front of the ball as behind. Again, I think when amateurs set up incorrectly, they have this ball back this way, they get inside, they try and lift the ball up, and their divot's way behind the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think about getting into the sand maybe an inch or two behind the ball.
Yeah.
I'm not totally concerned with how far behind though. If I'm using the back edge effectively, it's not going to matter so much.
Interesting.
But, if you even just draw a little line on your ball line, you want to see after you've hit that shot, the divot more in front of the line than behind it.
Interesting.
Again, so nice and ball forward. I'm going to open the club face, then take my grip, a little bit weaker. I'm going to angle the shaft behind me. I'm going to add lots of loft around me. This is going to get me moving nice and forward, using that back edge.
Absolutely brilliant. So not only is that absolutely incredible.
If you look at the line, this is where it went in. This is the line, this is the end. So it's a little bit more in front.
What I also noticed here that might have been a little bit different than, a chip shot or a pitch shot that most amateurs would be trying to hit, but it seemed like your hands went ahead and they added quite a bit more bounce through the hitting area. What would you say that is going on there? I know that's something that we saw quite a bit out of Sevi and a lot of these magicians in the past.
Sevi always talked about having that right hand underneath the shaft the whole time. So
yeah.
You're never wanting to let the shaft roll over. You want to maintain that loft as much as possible, that face pointing up towards the sky.
And is that happening because is that the softness or promoting more of the softness of that left elbow, or do you feel it a little bit more in the hand?
I feel a little bit more with the right hand, to be honest. Yeah. And that's going to create a little bit more speed at the bottom of the ball too.
Yeah.
And speed equals spin.
Yeah, for sure. Again, let's talk a little bit more about distance control. Let's say you had one of these, I think a lot of people get into trouble from the short-sided bunker shots. Let's imagine we had a hole, cut where those two tees are.
Yeah, we've hit it in the right bunker, the pin's on the right, really short-sided ourselves, and we've got to get this ball up pretty quickly and spinning. So even though it's such a short shot, you'll notice I'm going to still have a pretty full swing. I'm going to create a lot of speed.
Yeah.
And I've got to even open up the club face even more, really expose that bounce, get through there with lots of speed, lots of right hand.
You're feeling even more of the right hand as the more you get short-sided?
Absolutely. If I was to hit a little pitch shot from here, it would be just such a short little shot with very little speed. But, when it comes to bunker play and a short shot, you got to create a lot of speed.
Oh, that's great.
It's a full shot.
Yeah, for sure. And again, just adding a little bit more right hand to expose even more bounce. And again, there's no surprise at all.
Loft is your friend.
For hitting a more of a short-sided shot, you're adding more loft and even more right hand to create more loft and more bounce. What would you do if you had a little bit of a longer shot? Let's say we're going to, that pin over there where, the thought process here, would you try to run this a little bit more? Would you try to fly it all the way there?
You certainly could run it.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit counterintuitive, but if you want the ball to roll, it's a longer, kind of slower swing.
Interesting.
It's a little bit more around you, not so far down and left. It's a little bit more like that chip shot in a way. You're getting the ball to roll end over end. So sometimes move the ball position just a little bit back.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to having the blade be a little bit square. I still like it a little bit open. You don't ever want to expose the front edge and dig it.
Yeah.
But it's okay to have a little bit less loft looking at the target. Again, it'll be like a longer, kind of slower swing. I mean, that was a little bit fat, but it'll roll out towards the to the hole.
And how often get here even a longer bunker shot where you might do the exact same technique where it's a little bit longer, a little bit slower, and maybe even changing the club as well.
Go down to a 54, so less work needed.
Yeah.
Less loft. Ball's going to come out a little bit faster. It should just roll out towards the hole.
Absolutely perfect. So Luke, I want to certainly talk about the shots that give a lot of amateurs and maybe some professionals quite a bit of trouble regarding, downhill lies, as well as maybe some stuff where we're plugged, as well as some firm sand and other techniques that you certainly have mastered to help you get up and down from literally maybe the worst spots around the green. So what's your thought process jumping into a downhill lie in order to hit it, close to a short side or even a middle of the green pin if you do happen to find yourself there?
Yeah, this is a tricky one for amateurs because again, they're on the downslope. They think they need to lift the ball up. And the way they do that is, they put the body back, the center goes too far back and the club ends up hitting way far back here. But the fundamentals stay the same in terms of wanting to use the bounce as much as possible. But again, you've got to angle your body with the slope, go with it. So very similar to pitching, chipping. If the ball is on a downslope, you want to get the ball a little bit more forward, angle your body with it. So you're gonna have a lot of weight on that left side.
Yeah.
Still want to open that club face, expose that bounce, make sure you're really following the slope with your body and going with the slope when you go down.
So you're tilting the shoulders down, the right shoulder's getting a little bit higher, ball position more forward, and you're also creating quite a bit of, throw with that right hand.
Yeah, and just making sure that you're following the shot down the slope. Yeah, you're not trying to lift it up. There's still enough loft here. It's obviously going to be de-lofted a little bit with the slope, but make sure you're really angling that body down. Follow it down.
That is sick.
Easy.
It's awesome. Make it look easy. But again, just diving into keeping the fundamentals the same is I think what people really need to hear, because, not knowing what the bounce is, not knowing, the negative effects of having the leading edge come in first, or even having a grip that's too strong can wreak havoc on simple shots, let alone the stuff that gets a little bit more advanced when it does require a little bit more finesse and touch. I'd love to get your insight on terms of what you do from different sand types. I know that, the guys go out, you guys play a lot of different golf courses, a lot of different sand. Some is, not even sand over at Augusta, I know. But what do you do from, or does the mindset change at all from firm sand versus soft sand?
Yeah, obviously you want to lift the ball out by hitting the sand behind the ball and lifting the ball out with the sand. When it's soft, you can get under the ball quite easily. You still want to use that back edge. You do everything that we've just talked about. When it gets a very firmer sand, sometimes, I know growing up in England, we'd have some wet, nasty days in the winter and the sand would get very compact.
Yeah.
And if you try and do that sometimes using the bounce, because it does bounce.
Yeah.
If it's firm, it's going to bounce off the sand and kind of go into the ball and you're going to thin it or not get underneath the ball quite enough. So again, when that happens, I like to lower my handle just a little bit. Again, we know that there's a little bit more dig on the front edge and towards the heel. So for me, if it's a little bit firmer sand that we've created here, I'm just going to lower my handle just a little bit. I'm still going to create similar setup, similar fundamentals. I want the ball position forward. I want the shaft to be pretty vertical or exposed back, but I'm just going to lower the handle a little bit so that heel can dig underneath that firm sand just a little bit.
That's so intriguing. So based on sand type, you're going to expose not just more bounce versus less bounce, but maybe different parts of the bounce.
Right.
And so again, if it's softer, more traditional shots around the green, you're going to open it up, keep it square, move the ball position more forward and exposing the entire...
Yeah, lean the shaft, but again, by lowering the handle, I'm just going to get the heel to go into the sand a little bit quicker.
Interesting.
And that just has enough dig to get underneath that firm sand.
Interesting.
And to still hit that good shot with a little bit of spin.
Awesome. Well, let's see one from, what would be firm sand or hard pan.
Yeah. And a little bit lower.
Hit it. Great shot.
Got a little bit past it, but still had nice spin on it.
There's no question about it. So I'd love to be able to dive in with you in terms of what to do when the ball is either above or below your feet. I know a lot of the time, not just pitching, but in the bunker, people have a lot of issues when the ball is not flat on the surface. So I'd love to get some of your insight regarding what you do. That has certainly allowed you to be, the best bunker player in the world for better part of 10 years. And the stuff we're seeing now is absolutely electrifying, really.
Yeah, there's a few little subtle changes that you do in your setup. Again, when the ball's above your feet, the loft, again, because it's like this way, is going to be pointing a little bit more left. So I want to move the ball position just slightly more back and understand that the higher the ball is above you, the more the club is going to go around you. So just letting that club go naturally around you. It's not going to be quite as down and to the left.
Interesting.
But ball position a little bit back. That's going to get the loft and the club face pointing more You're going to stand up, a little bit softer knees. You're going to angle your spine a little bit more with the slope. And let the club face just angle around you a little bit more.
That's awesome.
It comes out nice and soft.
So the more severe the upslope, we can kind of jump up here a little bit. I know we're kind of diving into more of the specialty stuff, but again, do you make that a little bit more exaggerated, those ideas, in terms of being even a little bit more upright yet?
The slope is just going to do that for you. So again, you're going to really feel really tall here, not lean too much in, because that's just going to get you digging into the sand too much. So again, you want to feel like you're going with the slope. Club's going nicely around you.
And you're still feeling
that same
aim
a little bit more
throw?
right, because the loft is going to point left again.
Gotcha.
It's going to come out a little bit left, but yeah, getting that nice. Again, you never really want to lean the shaft. It's going to come out.
That's awesome.
With a little bit of hook spin.
Yeah. And again, what blows my mind is how consistent not just the outcome is, but the actual technique itself. And if you go ahead and you walk into the bunker and trying to change everything about your golf swing just to fit a lie, I think you're adding a lot of variables to the mix. But just to understand, one or two small checkpoints, if you will, between uphill versus downhill and things like that, make it a whole lot more simple. I know that one that people certainly want to take a look at is not just the long 50-yard bunker shot, but what you do from plug lies.
Plug lies, yeah.
And is there a difference between plug lies and fried eggs? We're gonna have you hit a couple of both. And how much, if any, does sand type have to do with that? Because I think that, having a plug lie in a very wet condition is certainly less frequent, but it certainly does happen. What changes at all when it comes to hitting a plug lie from very firm sand as well as, maybe some softer sand?
Yeah, I mean, there's different theories on this. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Lots of different theories on this. For me, again, because the ball is down, I'm not going to be able to use the bounce and skim across the sand, because I'm going to hit the middle of the ball because it's already down in the sand. So I need to get underneath. I got to realize that it's going to come out with overspin. It's not going to spin like a normal shot.
Yeah.
But I need to get underneath this. So for me, very similar to the hard sand, but I'm even exaggerating even more. I'm going to get a pretty square face, exposing that front edge more. And I'm going to really lower my hands as much as possible. I'm going to chop down on it as much as possible. So it's going to be a bit more hinge,
okay,
a bit more down.
And so hinge,
using that heel.
Is it hinging from the elbow or a little bit from the wrist, or a little bit of both?
From the wrist, yeah.
Okay.
So more from the wrist now. Again, I'm just using that to create a much more angle of shaft, steeper shaft here.
Yep.
I'm going to try and get underneath the ball, get down as much so the ball can pop up as much as possible and come out as soft as it can, but it's still going to have a little bit of spin.
No question. Again, I'm blown away in terms of the differences between engaging bounce on different parts of the club. I mean, it's something that I've never heard before. Just knowing the way the bounce engages with the sand differently on this side versus this side, it's huge.
Well, I think the manufacturers have made these clubs for a reason this way.
Yeah.
It gives you versatility in the sand. The usual lie, again, you want to take those thin, shallow divots. You want to use that nice back edge.
Yeah.
You don't have the option here.
For sure.
So I got to change it up a little bit and use that front edge.
So your square face.
Little square face. I'm going to get my hands super low.
Okay.
I'm going to just pick it up with my wrists and hit down hard behind the ball. You're going to have to hit pretty hard because it's more sand to move. It should just pop up.
That's great.
Comes out nice. Pretty soft.
Yeah, for sure.
For something that's so plugged
question.
down there.
So what happens if it's plugged a little bit closer to the lip, kind of up in?
Well, that's nice. I mean, I'd probably even go to my 54 now.
Yeah.
This isn't about a loft.
Yeah.
One, I've got a little bit of upslope, so there's going to add some more loft.
Yeah.
But here, because it's so much sand to move, it's going
Right.
to move through more sand. I've got to hit it even harder.
But still.
And this is below my feet, so I'm going to aim a little bit right, just because I feel like the head is a little bit above my hand. It's going to point the loft left, so very low. And I'm just going to try and smack down just behind the ball and try and get it to come out. I didn't aim quite far enough right.
But from that lie, that's
why
great.
It came out left.
For a And so when it comes to, a little bit more distance control, we talked about the chunk and run and things like that, but what's your thought process behind, if you didn't want to fly a ball all the way there, let's say, 20, 30, 40 yards, is a thought process taking less sand? Is it making a bigger swing?
I think just a bigger swing more than anything.
Yeah.
A little bit more speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have to get a little bit closer to the ball, but if you're using the bounce effectively, and you can sometimes go down and loft a little bit, that's easier to get the ball a little bit further away.
I think it's a really good soundbite just because a lot of people, they might think that you control distance in the sand based on how much sand you take. And I think that for those that don't understand the stuff that you do regarding how to engage bounce.
I'm trying to take kind of the same amount of sand every time by using the bounce effectively. And I'm just changing the way, how hard I'm hitting it, really.
Awesome. All right, well, let's have you hit one more to that short-sided pin, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw some curveballs at you. We're gonna have you hit a couple of longer 40, 50, 60-yard bunker shots.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's
even
not
for
easy.
Me.
But it's also one of those things you never leave yourself there. But knowing, the question I get a lot is, should you try to nip it clean or should you try to hit a bigger explosion shot with maybe a pitching wedge or a 9-iron? So I want to get a little bit more of your thought process, the decision making that comes in. I mean, does it change at all if you have, OB long versus a water hazard short and all that fun stuff from there?
Right.
So let's go ahead and jump into, have you hit one more from here, then we're gonna talk about some longer bunker shots.
To the short one?
Absolutely. That's great. So all that was is open the face a bit more and a little bit more of that
right
throw.
Hand, yeah.
Awesome.
More open.
Let's go and jump into some longer shots.
All right.
All right, so Luke, jumping into the shot that gives most people nightmares, we're talking about the 40, 50,
Myself
60 yard.
included, by the way.
No question. Again, there's a good reason why you guys almost never end up here. And by you guys, I mean players on tour. But when you do happen to get here, having these skills in your arsenal to be able to get up and down, certainly separate or has separated you from everyone else in the field. So I want to get some insight regarding, your decisions, because a lot of the times people are even, curious, should you pick this ball clean versus should you hit an explosion? So to go ahead and, learn from perhaps one of the greatest bunker players that has ever lived, what your consistent technique is here will shave off, not just a lot of stroke, but build the confidence to say we're working on the right stuff.
Yeah, this is obviously a horrible shot, even for us pros. We don't like to do this. We try to keep ourselves out of these situations as much as possible. But again, even having the correct fundamentals is even more important with something like this. I'm not really a proponent of picking the ball. I think it's hard enough to pick a nice shot off a grass lie, let alone a bunker where the surface is very unstable. So to get that strike perfectly with a short shot, a 40, 50 yard shot like this is really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
So I still like to splash it, but again, the most important thing is creating those thin, shallow divots. Instead of playing my 60-degree lob wedge, I'll go down and loft to my 54, even a pitching wedge. This one has 8 degrees of bounce, a little bit more bounce than my lob wedge. More bounce is helpful here. But again, you really want to create those thin, shallow divots as much as possible. When you can control that strike, you can control the distance a little bit easier.
And you're creating those shallow divots again through, creating less of a body turn, more of an arm swing on the way back, and creating a lot more of that right hand throw to create some speed on the way down.
Yeah, I don't really want to pick the club up, so I still want some body rotation. It's a little bit more of a fuller swing.
For sure.
And I'm going to put the ball position forward again. I'm exposing that bounce. I'm trying to create thin, shallow divots as much as possible. So less loft, try and get one to the hole.
Let's go ahead and see one.
Nice and around me.
Oh, that is absolutely masterful. Great
Yeah,
shot.
you can hear the sound.
Big
There's
time.
a different sound when you get it right. There's a thumping of the sand rather than a kind of a
Dig
low,
or a thud,
low
yeah.
dig.
For sure. And so I know that you said sometimes you might even grab pitching wedge. What situation would you hit that same exact style shot, and maybe grab even more club?
I don't know if we can see that right flag, but the right flag's probably a little bit further. This just gives you a little bit more margin for error. Again, Same stuff. You're going to open up the face, but because the face is really open now and less loft, you've got to aim a little bit more left. When it hits the ground, it's going to spin to the right. So you've got to take that into account. But again, ball forward, really make sure I'm moving forward, moving my center with the ball. Exposing that bounce and that loft. When it hits the ground, awesome. It spins right.
For sure, that is absolutely awesome. What's so impressive to me is the consistency and continuity of the strategy. In terms of you're never trying to change an element of your golf swing. You're doing small things, whether it be changing the lying hole of the club or the club itself to fit the shot shape. Again, super impressive stuff. Thank you so much for being here. And again, for those of you at home watching this, I hope you picked up a whole bunch, just because the idea of this game is to give you everything you need to play better, and more importantly, empower you with the understanding and the competence that creates the confidence in the shot. Because I think a lot of people, walk into a bunker, they're not even sure what to do. And even walking with that mentality, they're kind of set up for failure now that they know the basics in terms of what they need, but also from somebody whom, arguably, leads every stat that's ever been created regarding the short game. There's some clout there, but also with the clout comes a pedigree of experience that certainly allows somebody to glean a lot of information and a lot of really positive insight from you. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoyed sharing the time with you today.